So today we have Jason Allen here talking about an activity he did with his LA9 honors class. So Jason, can you tell us why you chose to do the project in the way that you did?
Well, we've been working on writing skills. They've been doing a lot of explanatory essays, and this is kind of a different form of it. And rather than give them yet another essay, I thought that this would be a great way to incorporate some writing skills in a non-essay format, while at the same time it would stretch our platform exposure, moving from H to A.
Excellent. So why don't you just take us through the assignment here? You've got to start us on Canvas, it looks like.
Okay, so we start on Canvas, and of course, much of this is great. It was copied straight from My Perspectives. Gave him a little warning, says, hey, warning, we are going to be doing something else with this.
Oh, what is My Perspectives again?
My Perspectives is our curriculum. It has its software, plus a paper consumable that works well. So I let them know that I was freely borrowing but adapting so they could get a head start on the curriculum materials, but that we would be customizing a little bit for our platforms. So after reading a couple of pieces by Martin Luther King, there was the speech, I Have a Dream, and the letter from Birmingham Jail. Students, they needed to identify different logical and emotional arguments, which was kind of new for them, that logos and pathos. And then they needed to analyze how each was appropriate for the occasion and audience. And of course, there's all kinds of pre-writing here. Thank you, My Perspectives. And the drafting, everything here was pretty much the same as it was for writing an essay. That rhetorical triangle stuff is what we wanted to get at here. The difference, though, the final product was that they were going to be creating an infographic that explained this. This is an opportunity to allow choices, and it was really nice too, because they've been working with Adobe Spark so much that I kind of led them into. I said, "You ready to do an Adobe Spark?" They said, "Yeah," and I said, "Too bad, because we get to do two new ones." So they could use either Picta or Canva or Pictochart, and those are actually both new in class. Some of them had exposure in other classes, but they were fairly new. But I was confident that they had the gumption, the gall to figure it out. It was still a lot of essay format. They're looking at a block style or point-by-point style. The addition here is text features, things like a creative text layout. I think that's down here in my rubric. The text features, that the purpose is enhanced through multiple pictures, multiple colors, multiple fonts. So a little bit of some publishing skills to add to that.
Very nice.
Wow. Excellent. All right. So here's the assignment, and tell us just a little bit more about kind of the process that you went through.
Okay, so it's mostly writing process, and it's a piece of cake. Now, what really differentiated it here, and I created it as a separate task, was we said, let's just take it to a rough draft stage. And now let's add another little layer of platforming, and this is a compare contrast virtual gallery walk, which played well with inviting all kinds of people into my room to see the magic happen. But it is a live peer review, and this is where the magic happened, I think. We added another platform. They learned how to post in Padlet. Again, we had a little bit of experience with Padlet, but they were to give some feedback to just kind of when students posted their projects here, I wanted them to give a little bit of feedback, and you can see some of that here. Some of these kids will say things like, I'm almost done with audience, I'm not done yet. And then some other kids were a little bit more specific, like, hey, is the explanation good? Can you read it? So really asking for directed feedback. I also wanted to keep this feedback nice and friendly and bite-sized, so they got a copy of the rubric. They were to post things like, I like, I wish, I wonder statements. Pretty harmless and friendly peer review. And they were tasked, students, after posting, they needed to review two other students' projects. Because it's a rough draft, we're only looking at content and text features. And they could even kind of like posts. You see some got several likes and some got a few likes, but everybody got looked at some point here.
All right, so this was between the drafts, feedback from the peer feedback, so they got practice with the rubric before they were finalizing. Terrific.
Yeah.
So as you look at the assignment as a whole, let's reflect a little bit. What worked well? What would you maybe change? Just talk a little bit about that.
Well, what I really liked is this was a publishing skills thing. They're so used to just being an essay factory. This gave them a chance to stretch their creativity, a little insight into the publishing world, you know, to make it look not just it's digital, but it looks good digital. Some students, they played it safe. They could just barely modify a template. Other ones wanted to create it from scratch. And I laid on pretty heavy that they're going to make an infographic, but not using Spark. So they had a little bit of choice with which platform. They had a little bit more freedom for what to choose to actually produce this. One of the things that I really liked, I got to give a shout out to Matt Stadelman. He brought this idea up of doing a project hack poster. So kids could post tips and tricks and things that worked well in one and not in another. And so that was really cool. That was students teaching students, which is, you know, it makes my job pretty easy. I think one of the posting part, the interactive part was dynamite. It's funny, they were actually bribing each other for likes in class, which was fun to see. They're handing out quarters or pieces of gum. And you can see the depth of thoughts here. Of course, they're anonymous. Maybe I'll change that. But it was really fun to see the enthusiasm in person. When this is overnight, it's a yawner. And kids it's 35 kids in that class. It's electric anyway. Now, there's a little bit of a hiccup when the Wi-Fi went down, but we thought on our toes, and really we were able to adapt to move on to the next step. If I could change one thing about this, it probably would have been building in more time for reflection, because we kind of just ran out of time. And the idea is this is a rough draft, read what people had, take it into consideration. I really wanted to think, pair, share, come out as a class. What were the trends that you saw? And then that way, those were vocalized in class. People could kind of categorize the main things that they needed to work on in content and in text features before moving to a final draft.
Sounds great to step it up to the next level again.
Yeah.
And do again.
It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
No sweat.